Farmer protests are breaking out across Europe, with much of the focus today on Brussels, where the EU summit on Ukraine is kicking off. 1,000 tractors have surrounded the Belgian capital already, continuing their push for better prices for their produce and less bureaucracy in their work. Our Brussels correspondent Dave Keating reports.
Supplies have been arriving regularly since Sunday. They're needed to feed these young Belgian farmers who are blocking this usually busy route, the E19 motorway, which connects Paris to Brussels. On the eve of an EU summit, they positioned themselves 10 kilometers from the Belgian capital with one objective: to put pressure on the 27 EU leaders.
The cards are in their hands. They know our demands very well. They know why we're here. They know very well that they have once again signed free trade with Chile for meat, which is completely absurd because we have quality here. Why buy elsewhere?
This questioning free trade agreements is also happening in other European countries. Also a target of their anger, EU environmental measures.
We understand the environmental problem and we want to respond to it. The problem is that today we're being asked to respond by removing ourselves from the budget. If we respond to all these environmental issues, tomorrow we will have a loss of profit, and the majority of farms are already in deficit.
The tractors were also positioned a stone's throw from the European Parliament because, in recent months, the battle has also been fought there. The center-right EPP group has gone to war against certain measures of the Green Deal, a package of EU climate measures.
We do not follow the idea of the extreme right, which say that the climate change, everything is wrong or it's only a lie. So we are not climate liars. We take the thing seriously. We are against ideological proposals coming from the Commission, and we are also against this ideological approach, which is unfortunately also in some NGOs working here in Brussels.
But it's difficult for Ursula von der Leyen to stray too far from the Green Deal, a defining policy of her Commission, when she's expected to ask EU leaders for a second term.
That report from Dave Keating, who joins me now from Brussels. Dave, what's the latest on the protests there today?
Well, the agriculture issue may not have been officially added to the agenda here at the European Council summit, but the leaders are certainly feeling the effects of these protests because they are basically surrounding where I am right now. It's been very difficult for journalists to get into this area, let alone the leaders. The summit was supposed to be starting now. It hasn't. It's a bit of a delay. Leaders have been arriving a bit delayed than we were expecting. It's unclear whether or not that's because of the protests, but certainly people are aware of them. As I say, it's not an official item for today's agenda. However, we certainly expect it to be discussed on the sidelines. President Emmanuel Macron has signaled that he will have a discussion with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen about loosening some of the EU rules on farmers, particularly in the areas of environment. Yesterday, we had the surprise announcement from the Commission that they were going to suspend the biggest part of the environmental rules in the Common Agricultural Policy, the PAC, as it's known in France, which is the agricultural set-aside, setting aside certain land for biodiversity purposes and combating climate change. That's going to be scrapped. That was really the centerpiece of the hard-fought greening of the CAP back when it was revised in 2021. It really doesn't leave the CAP with much measures on the climate at all. That doesn't seem to have calmed down the farmers' anger, though. They are still protesting here in Brussels. We're seeing them light bins on fire. You can see some of the images there. It's pretty intense out there. They're hearing it in here, they're feeling it, but it's unclear whether we're going to get any announcements. The Irish leader, Leo Varadkar, came in just a couple minutes ago to this summit saying that this is a pan-European issue, even though the protests may be happening mostly in France at the moment. We've also seen them across Europe in different European countries, and he said that basically the EU focus right now should be on implementing the laws that are in place, not putting new administrative burdens on farmers.
Dave, obviously the agriculture situation overshadowing the EU summit today, but the focus there actually is on Ukraine. Tell us more about what's going to be discussed today.
Yeah, this isn't a regularly scheduled summit. It was not supposed to happen. This is happening today because the leaders failed to have an agreement on providing more funding to Ukraine in December. The current EU funding runs out in March, and Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, an ally of Russian President Vladimir Putin within the EU, is vetoing that further aid. Now, since that failed December summit, two things have been happening. A, they've been talking to Hungary about what could be done for them to release their veto, but they've also been preparing a plan B, a plan to go ahead with Ukraine funding outside of the EU budget as a new instrument of the other 26 countries in the 27-member union. The big question today is whether Orban will end his veto and what will happen to him if he doesn't. Right now, we're hearing that Hungary is asking for an annual review of the Ukraine funding. This 50 billion euros that's on the table, that's for 4 years. He wants to be able to review that every year and also to be able to veto it every year. He wants that annual review to come with a unanimous vote. That part, the other EU 26 are resisting. They say maybe they could have an annual review, but that if it's going to have to pass a vote, it needs to be by majority vote, not unanimous vote, therefore not giving Orban the power to veto every year. Hungary is insisting they want a veto every year, so we'll see where we end up.
Dave, thank you so much for that. That's Dave Keating reporting for us from Brussels.